I'm Sarah Knight, and welcome to It's Got Pockets, where just like finding the surprise pockets in your favourite trousers, I'm bringing you perfect pockets of joy and realness. Every week, I'm having unfiltered conversations with women who crack the feck on, even when life gets proper lifey. Women with experience, expertise, and wisdom. Because sometimes the best stories start in the middle. Women who've been there, done that, and they're still figuring it out. Join me for real talk, useful tactics, and all the swears in between that make your life and business feel that bit more manageable. Hello, welcome to another episode of It's Got Pockets. Today, I am with one of my favourite people who actually happens to also have provided me with some of the most brilliant advice I've had over the past 2 years, 3 years, possibly. I am with the fabulous Katy, who I'm going to let Katy introduce herself officially, but I like to think of her as the queen of financial conversations, the queen of knowing what we need to talk about, how we need to talk about, and especially as women in business, leading teams, just as women, the conversations we should be having with ourselves and with other people about our finances, whether it's later life planning, whether it's our mortgages, whether it's what we need to know about our finances at any given age, and why the fuck don't we know it? Katy, welcome to It's Got Pockets.
What an introduction. Can you be my PR all the time, please? Yes, so I am Katy Eatenton. I have been working in finance for over 20 years, mainly mortgages, but that leads on to insurance, protection, looking at how we can mitigate inheritance tax with future planning around basically insurance to make sure children don't have to pay mortgages, etc. when you pass. I think the biggest issue with women in particular is it's what we don't know that is more damning to our future selves than what we do know. And we don't know what we don't know, which is why I'm so passionate now about trying to educate people as early as possible and not when it's actually already too late. So, as I said, my main focus has been mortgages. Everyone wants a mortgage, so that's easy to have a discussion around. People don't see the importance in protecting their income, their house, their mortgage, themselves as much because it's not sexy. It doesn't give you the house at the end of it. So that's a harder conversation. And then it's also future planning for if stuff does go wrong. And, it does. People get divorced, people die, people get sick. And the real driver for me at the moment is to have those conversations as early as possible. When you're thinking about buying a house, when you're thinking about getting married, when you're thinking about joining your life with another person, rather than at the end when the shit's hit the fan and you've got divorced and you've got nothing and you left hubby to sort everything out and what he didn't do was look after you. So it's having the conversations here rather than when you come and you've got no money and he's depleted your savings and he's left you carrying the burden, or trying to start again with no way how to do that.
And part of the reason why you're so passionate about that is because you're living and breathing through some horror stories with your clients, aren't you?
Horror stories with my clients, horror stories with myself. My daughter's 21, been a single parent from she was 3 months, so I did that all on my own. Obviously had the boys and then was on my own with them. How old were they? 2, 3. So I've done it. I've been the main earner, the provider. So I've done it for myself. And then you see clients that come, they're like, oh, I've split up with my partner, the house is in his name, I haven't worked, I've been a homemaker, what do I do? And at that point it's very hard to pick up the pieces and start again when you're starting from zero and you're in your 40s or 50s or beyond, and you've never had to deal with budgeting, paying the bills, getting a mortgage, getting a job. What does that look like? So it is horrible, and there's always a way. There is always a way, especially if you can kind of work through the pain and see the future as not something that needs to be dealt with immediately, but as a long-term plan. I'm nearly 50. We're at that age where suddenly life gets shorter rather than having this big time ahead of us, but there's still time. It's better to have something than nothing. And there's this proverbial saying or whatever that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the second best time is now. And it's true in financial planning or anything. Life begins when you're ready to begin it, and it might be different, but it still doesn't mean it can't be good.
And it begins when you decide, isn't it? And some of the stuff that we talk about all the time is that these conversations we should have had a lot earlier. That word should, which I ban.
Yeah.
But the challenge is, going back to what you were saying, is we don't know what we don't know, and the education part of it. And then the other flip side that I was just thinking about when you were talking through that is it's not just about the women who are in partnerships, and we are talking about heteronormative relationships here in the main, but it's not just about women who are in relationships with blokes they've done the financial planning and they've had traditional route. Increasingly I'm seeing where women are the bread earners, women are the ones that have earned it, women are the ones that are actually moving through, and the partner is not the one that's earned all the money, that's not put all the money into the house, that's not done all the things. And actually, then how do you manage that? Because all of a sudden, you're still in that position where you're having to split up income, houses, and you've given all that. So how do you protect yourself? And that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I also see that a lot where the man, I don't know, I don't even know if it's a man women fit. I definitely think women are more open to a conversation around how to do things, where men have kind of got this attitude that they know it all. They don't ask about anything. They don't want to feel stupid or like they don't know. So then they just act like they do know. The biggest thing is debt. The amount of men that are on massive salaries that are in masses of debt that their wife doesn't know about or that they can't really manage, but they're in a bit of a hole that they can't get out of. And then the wife's earning a lot of money, so ends up trying to bail them out or help them, but then the husband can't go on the mortgage, or it is, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's, women definitely earn more. They're a lot more proactive at the moment now than they've ever been. But I do get scared sometimes when I see the woman doing so much and putting everything in her name. And I'm like, you need to protect yourself. There's a way that you can buy a house. It doesn't have to be joint tenants where it's 50-50 and one dies and it goes to the other one. You can sever the tenancy and have it as tenants in common, where the percentage you put in is the percentage you take out. So
Explain that to us, because myself and my husband, the current husband, the final husband, the latest husband, myself and the husband are tenants in common in the house that we've got, and we're in that situation where he's not the father of my kids.
Mhm.
I've been split up, thankfully, from the father of my kids for a very long time. And so we bought this house together and we're tenants in common. What does that mean? And also, because, what is it? 1 in 2, 1 in 3 relationships are coming in now from a point of view of their, what we call blended families, people. What should we be doing? What are the conversations we should have? And what on earth does tenants in common really mean?
So tenants in common means that you specify at the beginning how the ownership of the property is. So if it's 50-50, it means that you decide what you want to happen with your 50%. They decide what they want to happen with their 50%. It gets written up in a will. So most people that have older children don't want their 50% to get left to the husband, and then the husband remarries and all of a sudden your 50% goes to his new wife and your children don't get what's rightfully theirs. So you do it as tenants in common. And I actually suggest this for young couples as well that aren't married, who don't know if they're going to get married, but they're buying a house together. And I say, consider this, because you've come in with 50%, you've come in with 50%. You might not stay together, you might not get married. So if and when you do separate or have children or something happens in the future, there's no argument about who owns what. I put this in, I put that in. If you buy it as joint tenants, you're jointly and severally own that property together. And what happens is, if one party dies, it gets left to the other one. If you get divorced, it gets split. There's no um there's no guide of ownership. It's not recorded anywhere. So tenants in common, it's specified at the beginning what the percentage ownership is. And most people will say, if I die, my spouse can remain in the property, but at the point that it gets sold or they die, my 50% goes to my children or whoever they specify. And that's what it is, really. It's like friends. If friends buy together, it should always be tenants in common. A lot of people now can't afford to buy on their own, so they'll buy with a brother, a sister, a friend. I've seen friends buy together. They've been best friends for years. As soon as they live together, they fall out and then it's a drama. So if you specify at the beginning who put in what in the deposit, who, a lot of people have help from parents, or, for you, for example, you've sold a house in the future and you've used that in the past, and you use that for your deposit. So you've put more in, or you've got children, he hasn't. It's just a safest way to save any drama when you're not here to fight the battle or to say what the actual agreement was. Because
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Is that it's not about, I mean, yes, of course, those conversations are uncomfortable, but actually, when you have the conversations when you're happy, it means that if something happens and you then have to split things up, it's all there in black and white, and it can make something that, yeah, and that, let's face it, I rarely see any sort of split up that isn't acrimonious, that isn't like a little bit of, well, she said, he said, and she said, and this said, and and that filters on for fucking years. So the fact of the matter is that the more that you can have those uncomfortable conversations at the beginning, then it's easier. It makes everything easier in the future. But I guess the key is that if you're doing things like tenants in common as part of your mortgage planning, the next thing is you also need to have a will.
100%. You have to, but you should have a will anyway. As soon as you have children, you do a will, because you need to specify who's going to look after those children when you pass. So even if you haven't got a house, you haven't got any wealth, but you've got a child, that they need to be accounted for. Who do you want to be the guardian? Some people have got horrific relationships with parents of children, or the parent isn't allowed to see the child, or you know it's not just about the things and the money, and it's everything that you want dealt with when you've gone. But as we're talking about tenants in common, it would get put in a will. So you would say, right, we've bought it, we own it 50-50. Mr. X can have lifetime interest in the property. At the point that he remarries, sells, downsizes, rewill, whatever, 50% goes to, and then you list who that is. That also should be mentioned in any insurance that you put in trust. You need to list who your beneficiaries are, who your trustees are. But back to sort of the man and woman thing, because historically and the majority of the time, the man does kind of control the purse strings. They are left to be the one that sorts the stuff out. So it's only once they've gone, i.e. died, that the wife realizes they didn't sort the thing out, and they're left with a massive mortgage that they can't pay. They don't know even how to get into their husband's banking or this or that. There are uncomfortable conversations to have, but there shouldn't be secrets in marriages or in couples. I I firmly believe, and I think I said this to you when we spoke the other day, at the point when you're considering children, marriage, mixing finances, buying housing. You need to, or be even getting serious with someone. You should have a DBS check and a credit check on your partner. And I know it's not romantic. However, in finance, you have to have a credit check. You can't give financial advice if you're got shit credit. If you work in, my daughter's got a DBS check. She works at Thorpe Park, you know, because you're working with children. If you're working in a service job like police, ambulance, firefighters, you've got to have a DBS check. Why would you not do that with someone you're planning a life with? It could prevent a lot of heartache in the future if you did. If you're trying to buy a house with someone and all of a sudden they've got 10 defaults or they've got a criminal record for God knows what, would you still want to be with them? But, I think there's lots of uncomfortable conversations that would prevent horrific conversations in the future.
Oh my God, so true. I remember, here's the oversharing part. I remember I was dating someone before the final husband, and I'd been seeing him for 6 weeks, and I knew he wasn't a long-term option for various different reasons. But there was something that put the final nail in the coffin, and we were going out, and we were coming back. He was dropping me back off where I live, and he went a really weird way. I was like, why have you gone that way? You can't, the quickest way to my house is down that street there. And he actually said really casually, he went, yeah, I'm not allowed to drive down there. I've got a restriction on it. And I went, sorry, what? And he went, yeah, I'm not allowed to drive down there. He said, I was actually in I can't remember whether he said juvie or jail or whatever, but he said, basically he was put away because he kidnapped a previous girlfriend and put her in the boot. And then he sort of laughed it off, right? This is a true story. He laughed it off and I was like, oh, that's really funny. Fucking get me home. I got home and then I felt, oh my God, I can't, he knows where I live. He obviously never met the children at this point. This was like, really early dating. And I thought, fuck, I need to finish with him, but I can't finish with him and tell him it's because he's a kidnapper, because then he might kidnap me and then I'll never see my children again. And I don't even have a will. So basically, I then waited a few weeks and was suddenly really busy with work. And I'd just got a little dog at the time, a little puppy. So I blamed it on the dog and said, I'm really sorry, I can't see you anymore because I've got this dog and the dog's taking up all my time and all this. So now everyone that knows me can work out exactly how long ago that was. And he was like,
Who it was.
Well, lots of people know there is a lot of dating stories in there. And he actually sent back, and obviously I did it over text because there was no way I was seeing him face to face for that conversation. Did not want to end up in the boot of a car. And he just sent me a message going, I know why you finished with me. And I was like, yes, because you fucking kidnapped someone, you idiot. But, that DBS thing, if I'd have done that, then I'd have known. And therefore, would I even have gone out?
I mean, obviously, I can't divulge stuff that's going on at the moment because of it's still going on. But if I'd have done that however many years ago, I certainly wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now. So it's not sexy, it's not romantic. However, I think a lot of people avoid uncomfortable conversations because they don't want to actually know the answer, or if I do find out that he's married or shit credit or a weirdo or been in jail or whatever they find out, then I'm going to have to finish with him. It's like, well, yeah, that's the point. Do you want to introduce the pedo to your children? No, you don't. So it doesn't matter how sexy he is, how he makes you feel, how good he is in bed. Get rid. Save yourself the heartache in the future. However, going back to finances, it is having those uncomfortable conversations. Don't wait until you've moved in with someone or you're talking about buying a house to then realize that you've got no hope in hell of buying a house with that person, because one, they've lied about their income, two, they're in debt up to the eyeballs. And you can plan. That's the thing with financial planning. It's all about planning. It might take longer, but it's better to do it and do it right than try and bumble through and make it fit. And just have the conversation, or even people on their own. Get your shit in order early, and it makes everything much easier in the future.
That's the thing, isn't it? Is that I'm really aware now at level 52 that we need to have the conversations about life and death, all the same time with your parents, with your partner's parents, with all those things. And the conversations that we avoid because we have all these sort of internal conditions in us that, usually make us very British, stereotypically British, or we shouldn't talk about that. But then when it happens, it's like, wow, all these things have gone on and it makes a terrible situation even worse. So, you know, in the situation the life stage that we're in, there's the education piece for our kids. These are the conversations you need to have when you're going into partnerships. These are the things that you need to think about. Lay it down. Let's be really open and honest about how you want to move into a partnership with someone. But then what do we do about inheritance tax? What is the thing about inheritance tax?
So obviously, inheritance tax, I can't give proper advice on because I'm not a tax advisor. However, they're the things to consider when you are getting to an age is, how much is your estate worth? How much is the value of what you're going to leave behind? Know what the tax thresholds are. So as a single person, it's 325 that goes up to 500,000 if it's your home, your main residence. If you die and you're married, your nil rate band moves to your spouse. So when they die, it's double. So it's if you're single, it's just you, obviously, to consider. So anything over 500,000 is 40% is getting taxed. So it's mitigating that, whether you take out a whole of life insurance policy to pay the tax, or you reduce your estate by, gifting money away, maybe. And again, I wouldn't recommend that people take mortgages that they don't need, but a lot of people want to leave stuff to their children, deposit for a house, or they've got crap pensions because they've left it to our age to even start thinking about retirement, so they might want to do a lifetime mortgage, which is like equity release, to take some money out. It reduces the value of your estate. So there's conversations around that which are good to have. But just a disclaimer, in case any compliance people are watching, are not giving tax advice. These are conversations just to think about, because who wants to give 40% to the tax man? You've already paid tax on everything.
Exactly. We've been taxed every time, and it's again, it's the conversation, absolutely. I know where your lane is, but equally, I also know that you're really passionate about getting people to ask the questions that count. And it's as simple as that, isn't it? It's know that you don't know this, so ask the question, and that's not, that's not about also our parents going anywhere. My mum and dad have got not a pot to piss in, but equally it's about, at 50, two of my friends have popped off to a cloud. We need to be understanding, like you said this to me the other day about, well, if you put your house in the pot, what's it worth and where you're going and how you're planning that? And I was like, what do you mean? I've got 4p left this month.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, you need to be thinking about these things because it's conversations we need to have and it's questions that we need to ask.
But also our parents, they were definitely my grandparents, which obviously aren't here anymore, but they were buying houses. Like my grandparents' house in Fulham, I think they paid 7 or 9 grand. It's 3 million now. Our parents are probably the last generation that bought houses cheap, that are now worth an absolute fortune. And it's the conversations that I have with clients who then go and have that conversation with their parents. And it's like, oh shit, what are we going to do? We've got a £2 million house. We'll gift it to you. You can gift it as long as they survive 7 years. There's no inheritance tax to pay, or it tapers down. All right, it just kicks the inheritance tax liability to the kids, but then they can do more with it. There's more time to plan before their kids have to deal with it. So it is like I said, the best time was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And as long as you do something, there's a lot of push at the moment for women to be financially savvy. You know, there's Female Invest, which is brilliant for teaching women how to invest. There's a lot more women in the business finance coaching space that are trying to educate women. And there's no question that's a silly question. A lot of clients say, "Oh, and I'm sorry, this is a stupid question." No, it isn't. There's no silly question. We don't know what we don't know. And that comes back to the men and women thing. A man will drive around in a car lost for fucking ages before he asks someone where to go. A woman straight away, well, where are we going? Google, sat nav, whatever. It's when we are much more open to learning and admitting that we don't know something. It's just having conversations with the right people and then implementing the conversation. Don't just have it and don't do anything with it. Because that's just as stupid.
Yeah, exactly. That's the I'm putting it on a to-do list, and the
Yeah.
to-do list never happens, because actually we need to make sure that we're taking action, because
But
having a
also these things
conversation.
cost money. You know, to protect yourself costs money, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than not protecting yourself and wanting to protect yourself once you've had a heart attack, once you've had a stroke, once you've lost your job. You know, if you'd have done that little bit early, you'd be a lot better off when that happens. And that comes back to what you're saying with women in business. So much stuff can be offset through the business. You can protect yourself, life insurance, critical illness, income protection. You can put it all through the business as an expense because the business will own it and insure you because you're an employee. So there's so many ways to structure things that yes, you're going to pay for it. That's a given. You pay for everything.
So just on that, Katie, though, if because obviously you manage my finances from that point of view, and I've got various insurances through the business that the business pays for. I'm a limited company.
Yeah.
Does that work if you're self-employed? Does it work if you're in a partnership? Do you need to be a limited company to be and then an employee of the business for that
Yes.
to work?
Yeah, it only works as a limited company because the company owns the insurance and you are the insured. So the company pays for it. It's like an employer, but people that are employed, they get sick pay, they get death in service. It's exactly the same, but your business is the employer and you are the employee. And it gets offset against your corporation tax.
So, and because some of the stats that are coming out now is that, from 45 onwards, there's so many women now coming out of the corporate space and looking at setting up their own business and looking at what they do next. I call it their plot twist era. This is the time where I've suddenly gone, I'm going to burn it all down and create something else. And that's when they also then need to have conversations with the relevant people about whether it's better for them to be a limited company, self-employed, a partnership. There's, other options for them, but equally then have those conversations about how you cover yourself, because I know that, and you know me very well, is that, part of my conversation all the time is what happens if anything happens to me, because my kids are 19 and 23 now, but I don't want them. And I was having this conversation with another friend of mine who's, a single parent. Even though they're in a beautiful relationship, you still see yourself as a single parent from that point of view of going, right, okay, how do I protect my kids? That never stops, does it?
No, and I'm in a lovely relationship now as well, but I will still say, as hands-on as he is with the children, the responsibility for them still financially is mine. And I mean, I'm insured up to the hill. I spend hundreds on insurance because I've got a business that is just me. You know, I've got staff, but ultimately I am my business. I've got a mortgage. I've got children. You know, my youngest are 6. There needs to be money to pay for them if I die. So I've got a policy in place that will give whoever's the guardian a lump sum of money to look after them, which actually their sister, which might not be the best idea because she's rubbish with money. Education went over her head. Um, but it can be as expensive or as cheap as you want it to be. You don't have to spend hundreds of pounds, But I know that I would rather have the comfort of knowing they've got too much money when I die than not enough. And they've got to sell the house. They've got to scrimp around. My daughter at 20, whatever, is responsible for two little dots that are expensive. You know, twins are not cheap and children are not cheap. So, yes, it gets expensive when you get older. It gets even more expensive when you get sick. So, it's better to do it while you're fit and healthy and well than wait until you get sick and then trying to get it, or you can't get it at all. Or, you know, like you've said yourself, or as you know yourself, if you're overweight and you take insurance, they will charge you extra for that. As soon as you lose weight, you go and get weighed, you have another medical, they take that rating off because you're suddenly not as risky. So they will honor that and they'll take the money off. If someone smokes, you get charged more. But you stop smoking, you have a medical, you prove you don't smoke, they'll take the smokers' rates off. So anything you do to better your lifestyle and your health and longevity, they will honor that and reduce your premiums. So it's better to just have the conversations as early as possible. And when is too early or early enough? I'm teaching my kids now about saving and investments. I've opened a junior ISA. I give them money for chores, and straight away I take some away and I invest it. They don't know what money is properly, but they know that if they do something, they get money and it goes here. So I think it's never too early to have conversations, but there's no excuse to leave it too late anymore. I don't think there's enough information around now.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Is it's on us to have the conversations because it's not fucking taught in schools, which is my bugbear, and therefore, when the daughter got a big girl's job and she was like, she opened her first pay slip, it was like, oh, what is this? And I'm big on the pensions because I am that person that, having had my own business for 23 years, is now going, shit. I'm going to be working till I'm 95, whereas some of my friends are going, oh, I'm going to retire in 3 years. And I'm literally questioning my life choices, but, who wants to retire anyway when we've got shit to do, Katie? But, that's the thing is that, I'm saying to my kids now, listen to what we need to do. Is as frustrating as it is, put that money away and do that thing, because we need to have those conversations so that our kids aren't in the situation that I'm in. But equally, we're also, if you've not had the conversation about yourself, then we also need to have that now, because it gets more expensive as you get older. My husband hates insurance and doesn't believe in it. I mean, but he's got it. He didn't have a choice in it though. But luckily, we've brought that into the business planning. And that side of it is all in the business planning, because again, if anything happens to him, then I can't afford this house on my own. But equally, if anything happens to him, I don't want to be within 3 minutes going, shit, I need to sell everything up and go and live in a caravan on a beach somewhere. Well, although that does sound,
It sounds nice.
yeah, well, maybe.
But that is also, young people really don't understand how grief can affect people. The amount of, and I say young, like early 20s, buying houses. What are you going to do if you lose your job? Oh, my mum and dad will pay. And it's like, have you actually asked them? Because they might pay it for a couple of months, but they're not going to pay it forever. Yeah, and it's a tenner. Why would you not? And I'm in a very blessed position when I have these conversations, because to do a mortgage, I need everything. So I can go through bank statements because I have to do a budget planner with clients. And I'll be like, but you spend 60 quid on vaping. You spend £40 every Friday on vodka. Oh, so sorry, your life is not as important as a vodka it's they just don't see the value in it until they need it. If you crash your car, what's the first thing you do? You phone the insurance company. So whether people like insurance or not, it's there for a reason. And if you're honest and you answer the questions truthfully, it will pay out. Insurers don't not want to pay out. They've got a bad reputation. House insurance is a little bit, they will try not to. But life insurance, If you've told the truth, they speak to your doctor. If everything is validated, they'll pay out. There's insurers who've got 100% claim rate. You know, it's not as bad as travel insurance or home insurance, you know. But you've got to tell the truth. Again, had a horrific story of a client a couple of years ago now who, again, had a very passionate conversation with them about insurance. You need it. Oh, don't need it. Don't need it. Went and did it himself on Money Supermarket or whatever. Wasn't honest on the form. Killed himself. And they didn't pay out because he'd tried to commit suicide when he was really young, had said he hadn't. So one of the questions is, have you ever contemplated suicide or attempted it? And he said no. So they've given him cover. To be honest, even if he'd have said yes, they would have definitely covered him because he was so young. But obviously, because he didn't, straight away, oh, well, we wouldn't have given you cover. And they didn't pay out. So again, if you tell the truth and it costs more money, it's because you're more at risk to claim. So you still need to do it because it means you're more likely to use it than somebody that hasn't done any of the things or hasn't had any of the things. So I've seen horror stories and I've seen success stories as well where people haven't wanted it. We've done it anyway and they've claimed and died and, you know, the family have moved on. There's way more positive stories that I've got to share than negative with insurance. But it's an absolute must. Anyone that doesn't take it, I think, is crazy. But even if you're young, you've got no kids, and you don't see the value of life insurance, when you die, it means your family don't have to worry about trying to deal with your crap while they're grieving, because no one wants to do that. And the mortgage company will give you about a year, and then they want their money back. So they're horrible conversations, but they don't call on death. You know, a lot of men don't want to talk about wills because they think it's going to bring it on, but we're going to die.
So if someone's sat here now listening and they're like, and they've not really thought about it, they've not thought about any sort of financial planning, and all of a sudden they're like, all right, okay, I need to do something. What are the questions or the conversations that you would suggest people have?
I would definitely, in the very first instance, know exactly where you are financially. So write down all your income, all your outgoings. We need to know where we're starting from, and then get engaged with whether it's someone like me who, yes, I'm mortgages and insurance, but I work with people that do investments and pensions and wills, and you know, there's a whole team of us. I can have an overview conversation of everything and then point people in the right direction. But you need to speak to somebody that will be honest, be speaking language that you can understand, and stick with you and make a plan. It's not just about right now, it's a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and have, you know, what do you want to achieve? Do you want to have children? Have you got children? Do you want to get married? It's literally talking about everything and then making a holistic plan around all of it. There's not easy questions, really. I guess the two main things people need to do is a budget planner to know where you are, where you're starting from, get a copy of your credit report to know what's lurking in the background, and then either make a plan to save more money. I mean, the biggest thing with the we'll know what we don't know, a lot of people know what they earn, but they don't know what they spend, or they don't know how things are going to perform in the future. So they don't know what they need to save. So start very basic. What goes in, what goes out? How can you reduce what goes out to so you can save some of what goes in? And then put it in an ISA or put it in a bond or something that's not too risky, just simple, and then grow from there. If you're planning on buying a house, obviously you need to factor in saving for a deposit. But as a nation, we spend more than we earn. That's
Yeah. Oh, I
we
can't relate there.
I'm guilty of that as well, you know.
And also, I would add in that start educating yourself. You know, remind me what your Instagram handle is.
Katy Eatenton _finance.strategy. But I posted the other day, we are responsible for learning about money. You can't blame anybody else for what you don't know. Not when there's so much out there now to to learn. I learn every day. I'm reading an amazing book at the moment called Smart Women Finish Rich. And the stuff I'm getting from there is like, oh my God. And you know it, it's there lurking in the back of your head. But sometimes it just needs to be presented in a different format to how you've heard it before.
Yeah. And having those conversations is so important, because if we leave it too late when things are already bubbling, it's even harder. So the education piece, the asking all the questions, and taking responsibility that it's on you to understand more, to know more, to ask the questions, and to then, and I loved what you said there about finding the right advice, but in the right room, because it's about feeling safe, isn't it, to be able to ask all those questions as well and not be judged.
And the thing is, I've been there. I've been 100 grand in debt. I've done it. So when people say, "Oh my God," there's absolutely no judgment, because I've been there. We've all had shit in the past. Everybody has, but I've come out, and I've been in again, and I've come out. It's and I'm not for everyone, and not everyone is for everyone. But when you find the person that you can have an honest conversation and there is no judgment, and you are in that safe space, it's just nice to have somebody to go through your ideas with, to write it down, to work it out, to have a plan, and then stick to the plan.
Yeah.
There's no point having a plan and then winging it.
Yeah. So it's preparing for it, and then planning for it, and then sticking to the plan. And and that's why we worked together though as well, because it was one of the first times I'd found myself in a space where I could go, shit, these are all the things that are going on. This is the debt that I've been left with. These are the things I'm playing with, and I've never been judged for it. Whereas I've been in certain situations where I have been judged for it, and it's like, well, hang on a second, I've done all this as a single parent, and that's the power of it. Now, the final question I always ask my guests is 6-word memoir. So, Katy, what is your 6-word memoir?
Beg for forgiveness, not for permission. It's always been my favorite saying, and I still stand by it. If we wait as women, as people, if we wait for someone to give us permission to be our best selves, we're never going to get the shit done. And start now.
Start right now and stop asking for permission. Just crack the fuck on. I love it. I love it.
And if it goes wrong, then it goes wrong.
Yeah, we do things differently. We can keep flexing, we've got the plan and we can flex the plan, but let's find what the bloody plan is. Katy, thank you so much for your energy, your conversation, and your bloody contribution. I will drop all the links of how you can follow Katy in the show notes, and I will see you all again next week. Take care.
See you later.
As we button up another episode of It's Got Pockets, remember that just like that perfect dress with hidden storage, you've got pockets of potential. You can be exactly who you are meant to be, with no one getting in your way, not even yourself. Just remember, you're not done yet. That plan B or plan C might be waiting for you. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to work with me, or simply want to connect, come and find me at sarahknightconsultancy.co.uk, or on LinkedIn, you'll find me as Nighty S. See you next time.